Hello, this is Leilani Coffin. We're going to be starting this webinar officially in a couple more minutes. We like to make sure that if some of the attendees want to say who they are and what they're hoping to get out of the day, this webinar today, they can do so now.
Okay, Alicia White, New Caney ISD in New Caney, Texas.
Cindy McDuffie, and I am from Caribou, Maine, and looking forward to finding some balance.
Corey Dennis.
I am an assistant director with exceptional education in Tucson Unified School District in Tucson, Arizona.
I'm Justin Hall. I'm a PE teacher at Dillard Academy in Madison, North Carolina.
I'm Kathleen Scott. I work in the Lawrence Public Schools in Massachusetts.
Great, good to have you.
Hello, I'm Kelly Enriquez. I work at Choice Technical Academies in Owatonna, Minnesota, and I'm a special education advisor. And I'm looking for balance and how to keep meeting my kids' needs.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, we're coming up on the hour side. Again, it's Leilani Coffin from the Learning Council. I'm CEO and a news media publisher. We do a lot of big research. A lot of you guys know us pretty well. You probably get our newsletter that goes out, and you perhaps are already Edu Jedi yourself. So you've joined our Edu Jedi Leadership Society. I'm a Grand Master of that Leadership Society. And I have with us today Lisa Riggs, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment from Gresham Barlow School District up in Oregon. Also, Tisha Mesa. Tisha, you have to correct me if I said your name wrong. But Campus Instructional Technologist from Heights High School, Houston Independent School District down in Texas. And I believe we're waiting on Nestor right now, but Nestor's supposed to be with us today, Director of Professional Digital Learning from Dallas ISD. Awesome guy. He came to our national gathering this last year. Really impressed by him. Very intellectual character, so hopefully he joins. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this issue of screen time versus teacher time. We've been hearing a lot of stories, and I'm sure you guys have all your own stories, so feel free to type in if you want to make a comment. But the stories about screen time, there's a big wide range of them, and a lot of it has to do with too many Zoom meetings or Zooms going awry or parents all up in arms because their kids are on the screen for all day, every day, and that kind of thing. So again, who we have with us today, Lisa, Tisha, and Nestor. We also have with us Allison Bowers, who's the Senior Director of Learning Resources. And Allison's amazing with her team. At the very last minute, they scrambled. They said, we want to sponsor that. So they're helping underwrite today's event, Screen Time versus Teacher Time. And I think they're the best company ever to do it because of what they're offering now. So we're going to go over a little bit about what ACT is actually offering now. This is totally new news for most people in the market who know them one way, but now they can know them in another way. And then I'm going to go over the top concerns, like really what we're seeing as a research organization from this whole screen time versus teacher time issue. Nestor, you're here. That's great. Okay, cool. So when we call on you, then we're just going to have you let it rip. So get ready for that. I'm going to keep you on mute until then. So glad to have you. So I'm first going to call on Allison to do her intro as our underwriter for today. So what's happening? Allison, you've been unmuted, so go ahead and introduce us to what's going on with you guys.
Thank you so much, Leilani. We are really thrilled to have the opportunity. And as you say, it was a bit of a scramble, but thrilled to be here to represent learning resources at ACT. So in the midst of a transformation of ACT from purely a measurement company to one focused on the life cycle of learners, then suddenly the entire planet enters into this crisis learning mode that all of you are right in the middle of. So moving to 100% online, remote and distance learning suddenly became not just something that we're thinking about, but a high priority for the here and now, potentially for even this summer, next semester, and certainly as all of you prepare for learning continuity in the future. So while we at ACT certainly did not predict the current crisis mode for education, we have been listening to district leaders so that we can ensure that the learning resources we provide actually meet the needs of your district, whether that be at the leadership, teacher, parent, or student level. So the first way we've begun to do that is through an application called iCurio. Some of you may have worked with Novation Learning. Well, iCurio was developed by that company, which is now a part of the ACT family of offerings. So With iCurio, we save teachers and students time, which translates to quality screen time. I heard several people say they were here to learn how to sort of get toward a balance of screen time. So we want to help with, when looking at screen time, the quality of resources being paramount, that the quality resources equate to that quality screen time. So what is iCurio? It is a curated, contextualized, and maintained library of more than 360,000 open educational resources. With iCurio, these open resources go through a 127-point certification process where they're evaluated for their quality, safety, and relevancy for the K-12 students and teachers. So we have a team of professional educators who look at every single resource and consider attributes such as ad level, lesson structure, cognitive effectiveness, standards alignment, the quality of instruction, the depth of learning, as well as authority. So we curate with all of this in mind based on relevance. Does the resource actually address standards? Does it fit instructional gaps? And what type of purpose does each serve? Is it project-based learning, or is it challenge-based learning? Maybe it's interactive, or is it perhaps a PD resource? So right now, as you can see, we are offering free classroom subscriptions through the end of June to your teachers throughout the crisis, but we're also offering implementations at the school or district level. So those wider implementations would also include custom registration codes, access for all of your teachers, students, and parents, custom professional learning opportunities, and then digital transformation planning and implementation support. So go to the next slide, please. You'll see that one of the big difference with iCurio is we're taking these open educational resources and we are collecting metadata to add the value. So all of the metadata that's collected throughout that 127-point checklist of curation becomes a part of iCurio. So no other application is going to provide your district such affordable access to such a comprehensive collection, because we're collecting it from trusted publishers and providers. We're very comprehensive of all grades, subject areas, resource types. We're certifying them for quality, aligning them to all standards, and managing those through continuous analysis for availability and classroom appropriateness. And we're ensuring that they're integration ready with or without an LMS. So next slide, please. One of the questions that'll frequently come up is, okay, that's interesting, but what's ACT's authority to serve beyond the test and assessment? Well, the answer is that all of our work is rooted in the holistic framework, where we serve the learner from pre-K through career in 4 key areas, those being core academic skills, the cross-cutting capabilities, behavioral skills, and then education and career navigation. So when we talk about learning at ACT, we understand the value of that longitudinal path for each and every individual. So this is where we start with learning at ACT, through decades of research on college and career readiness with this holistic view of the learner. So next slide. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to help you learn a little bit about what we're doing at ACT, because at ACT, we are providing learning resources that address this holistic view of every learner. We've been listening to district leaders as you express the need for social and emotional learning resources and quality resources for digital learning. So we're here for you now, and we're here as you begin to plan for the future and learning continuity. So you'll be hearing more about our offerings in the very near future. So our hope for the immediate future is that iCurio might ultimately save precious time and allow new ways of connecting with students, allowing judicious choices of screen time to equate to quality instructional time. So we thank you, we appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to serving your needs across the learning division.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you very much. Okay, so here are the areas of address that we're gonna have Lisa, Nestor, and Tisha answer. So right now, this is what we're hearing from a research perspective, and then just on the ground discussions with so many educators since quarantine started. What really people care about, and this was, this has been in the news for years, is they think that kids aren't living in life. They're not getting out like before the age of mobile phones and iPads. That kids are just glued to these devices and their world is shrunk into this digital networked mode, or that the students are isolated. They worry that kids are isolated on screen and they're getting no real group dynamic. They also worry in a school context that the teacher's not doing their job. They're just giving the kids some sort of app game, and the kids are just doing that and the teachers are not doing work. Or they think that, the old-fashioned way of just paper and pencil and chalk was better. And those people typically usually do not have any acquaintance with high-value digital courseware or digital curriculum. They don't have the experience background. I'm going to speak to that in a second, but that's really where a lot of people are coming from as they attack you on the screen learning issue as schools. People believe that screens could do damage psychologically. So these colorful boxes here are areas of address, and some of this is policy areas, and some of it's as schools educating teachers, parents, and students. So first of all, we're going to show research here in a second about screens being good and why. So unlike TVs, which of course historically, and this is something to remind people of, took up way more time of prior generations, they're not as much anymore. And screens are, what you can do on a screen is interactive and it can be connected. It's a different sort of universe of where learning can go. The other thing that you really need to do as a school and district is differentiate your own understanding of resources and help parents and students understand the difference of types of resources. So there's, digitized flat resource, which can be, you have a book, right, online that's not interactive in any way. It's just a scrap of some text. So that's kind of digitized. It's fairly flat and non-interactive. So that's those kinds of things we understand, where people are like, oh, I don't want my kid doing that all day long. Then there's the real true live interaction, like a Zoom meeting, like a Google Meet. Those are different than just screen ingestion because the kid is actively engaged. Then there's the digital professional media, which is courseware. It might be gamified, animated objects. I know ACT has a lot of these types of high value things in their library. Video, gamified instruction, it's not flat. So then you have to talk about the teacher's job today, which is, there's a lot of logistics, and we're going to hear a lot today from our panelists about the logistics of just remote learning. This is a huge thing, and really pretty much you can't do it unless you're doing it digitally to the students. It's pretty hard to just do call in. We had one superintendent talk about the fact that one student complained they had 32 calls in one day from all their teachers. That's too much. So the logistics job is a really big thing. And then also the personalization. If you're going to take digital at the extreme level of its competency, you can see how well it can be personalized. And also being a social support, not just the point of knowledge distribution, and then understanding by parents the sheer volume of exposure their students are getting now because of digital that literally dwarfs all the previous generation's exposure to knowledge. That's a huge upside to what screens are capable of executing on. And then you have to differentiate for everyone in the game the difference between active and passive learning. So what I'm about to show you in research is there's a difference between the passive ingestion of knowledge, just all by yourself reading something, and the work that we do here in any business, or you guys as leaders in your schools. You're not just ingesting stuff, you're typing up emails, you're answering things. There's a difference between active and passive digital. And then motivation. Screen learning actually mimics adult working right now. And if you weren't going to be able to use any sort of digital device in your school, then what you're really doing is making kids feel like they're landlocked in sort of the old history of how things are done in the world, puts them further behind. Digital also allows differentiated access to personalized. I want to pump up that point because different kids are going to need different things, and that's easier to distribute digitally than if you're just doing it in person. Okay, so the final point here is that screen time is typically supposed to be 40% only in school, whether it's remote school or physically in school. And 60% of the work of a school should be more of the project-based, hands-on, creative or contributive work of the student. So this is the main research that the Learning Council has relied on. There's a lot of other data out there, and there's a lot of contrary data as well about screen learning being bad for your eyeballs and everything else that can be said to bash it. But the most prominent study we've ever seen was this one done by Psychological Science, Association for Psychological Science. They actually reviewed 120,115 15-year-olds in a study that was published back in January 2017. And what they found is that the optimum is 4.5 hours per day. And it's actually good for teen brains. This is a monumental study. There's literally no way you can argue with the sample size of their data. Here's the caveat. These are 15-year-olds. They're not 5-year-olds. So it was open to argument about how much is good for the younger crowd, and I know we can sort of walk our way through that. But if you look at 4.5 hours per day as optimum, what you need to know as a school is you can't take all 4.5 hours, because those kids are wanting to play Minecraft on their devices in the evening. They're wanting to text with their friends. They're wanting to do all sorts of things that should take up their personal use of screen time. So the guidance that we like to offer is that you should be willing to and able to take up only about 2.5 hours of the day. So here's the 40-60 learning ratio split that we recommend as the Learning Council. 40% screen learning, which can be active or passive ingestion of data. You can use more than that if what the student is doing is crafting a essay, taking a test, being on Zoom meeting or whatever kind of meeting you have. But the more passive, slightly active, like punching buttons and answering field answers, that really should stick to only 2.5 hours. And some records are showing that basically that amount of time might be even the homework time that you give kids. And then 60% of what you're doing is project-based, whole group, small group, or direct instruction. And that time, if it's given in a digital format, is your Zoom meeting, whole group instruction or small group meetups. The reason for this is that you have to consider teacher time. We did a review of all the things teachers are doing. You could probably add 100 more things to this list, the visual icons on this list of what a teacher does in terms of distributing that to a student. It's a lot of work. And you're probably observing in schools that right now, you can't have a teacher in a Zoom meeting all day, every day with every class. The structure that you had in the physical environment doesn't work in the digital environment only. You can't, it doesn't work. So time management, how you're doing direct instruction for kids that need the extra help, how you're doing whole group, how you're doing small group, all your lesson planning in the digital world. It's a different ball game, but it all has to do with teacher time, which is one of the reasons I was glad that ACT sponsored, because this time savings for moving to digital in terms of just lesson planning is really significant when you look at your structure of resources behind your teachers. Okay, so I want to invite my panelists to dig in and talk about what they're seeing in terms of how screen time is being used and sort of what they're trying to pressure their schools to go into now that we've all had to instantly go remote, like overnight. So Lisa, do you want to share first?
Sure. Thanks for having me and being part of this hour with you, Leilani, and the group. It's nice to be with a panelist from Texas. That's where I came from prior to Oregon. But I was really interested in this because, as many of you, our district jumped right into one-to-one right away and had to recreate things. And so what I realized is I was learning online and doing a lot of meetings. And so although, you talked about the 40-60 split and things, that was in the forefront of my mind as I started working from 7 until 7 on screen. So I do want to say that fatigue is real, and it will happen to our our teachers and our students as well. And so I think it's really important to lay out the plan of the day, and so we did that quickly. Our primary focus is to create normalcy for our students and create and continue the relationships that are built within the classroom when you're actually in a school. And so the secondary piece was really continuing to educate our students and cover standards and make sure that the online learning was happening. It was really that social emotional connection and normalcy. And many of you are doing the same thing. We are interacting with our kids because we are ensuring that we have lunches set up and breakfasts, and we have feeding and all of that set up, and also in the rare case making sure that we have project-based learning available as we're setting up our one-to-one and our Wi-Fi for some of our rural community. So I guess the first thing I would say is we really did want to balance that. And you were talking about what the average 15-year-old and older can utilize with screen time. And what I'd say is even that needs to be broken down throughout the day. And certainly with the K1s, really limiting that to, in our district, we said no more than 45 minutes throughout the entire day would be screen, and then the rest would be project and doing and thinking and getting off of the screen, just to have a diverse day set up. We were excited to calendar, and we put it in three categories: the screen and the online learning, both synchronous and asynchronous, meaning that we might want to record some things, but if we're focused on relationships and we're focused on that social emotional learning, that means bring your classroom together and have that relationship, teacher to student and then student to student, and that's so important. And when you start that, the first week, I know you were all thinking this like I did, they acted like they hadn't seen each other in years because it was a reunion of the class, but that's very important. And then we have the home and doing your project-based learning offline and independent work. And then we really put in a wellness portion. So that's how we structured our day, with office hours, with instructional times set out throughout the day.
That's great. That's really great. We heard a little bit of that, and actually Central Bucks up by Philadelphia shared their, where they shared their screen and actually showed their schedule. We'll have to share that out too. We asked them if they could give us an envelope of all that, because they had built it in Google, if they could give us that to hand out. But I'm sure yours looks really fairly similar. You've blocked it out in a different way. Am I right about that?
We did block it out because we knew that we would have children in one household throughout the day that may need to share technology, and we wanted to make sure that it was reducing the times dependent on the grade level. And we don't go beyond that 3 hours of max for the 9th through 12th grade because they do have independent work, and then they also need that wellness. We really do think it's about the relationships and the social emotional needs that our families have. And we realize that we're not doing or creating digital online learning. We're trying to learn digitally through the digital platform during a pandemic under stress. So we keep that all in mind.
That's awesome. I think that's the right approach. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going over to you, Tisha. Okay, so share. Let's hear from you. I know you're dealing with a lot of the same stuff, and your district was already under stress.
Yes, we are. I'm Tisha, and I am the instructional technologist at Heights High School. So I am actually part of an advisory group with the Power Up people. So we work, I know a lot. High school has been a struggle in the sense of balance. A lot of you were asking about balance and looking for balance for yourself and for your students. And that has been something I've been working closely with teachers the last few weeks. So when we all started, since we were Power Up, high school was very we were blessed because every high school student has a laptop. So that aspect we were taken care of. However, we still had the Wi-Fi issues. And T-Mobile and Sprint both donated a bunch of hotspots for all students across the district, elementary through high school. So that was a
Tisha,
bonus. Yes.
Tisha, can I just clarify for everyone? So Power Up is the initiative in HISD that's backbone on It's Learning's LMS, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
yeah, we do have It's Learning as our LMS. Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
So the first week of getting everybody to do virtual online, that was a struggle because they're used to using tools, technology as a tool integrated in their instruction. Well, now they have to do face-to-face. So we use Microsoft Teams. And my campus, we decided to break up our 7 periods in 4 days. So Mondays is really our meeting day with the instructors and team leads. And then Tuesday through Friday, we do 2 periods each day. So first and seconds on Tuesday, 9 to 10, and then 10:30 to 11:30. And then after that, it's the teachers choose what office hours they want to keep. And I stress to the teachers, like, keep those office hours consistent and make sure your students know. They do record their lessons or their class times with the students. So the students who are not online because they feel like 9 a.m. is too early for them, I have to laugh a lot on that. They record it and then they put it into It's Learning. So students who did not catch it, they can go back and watch, which is important with this whole COVID deal. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing this, but a lot of my students, the high school students, are actually having to work because their parents can't. So they're missing that class time face to face, but they can go back on later and watch and catch up on their work. And then they do reach out to their teachers a lot, and they tend to reach out really late at night. And I've had to stress to my teachers because this is created like really anxious on us, on the teachers and the administration, because we want to help, we want to be there for the students, right? And we're constantly answering questions. I mean, I was up every day, I would hear a ding, I have to answer. You feel like you have to answer, right? So we've had to put time limits and asking parents to stress to their kids at home, the students. Our PTO has been wonderful in spreading that message, like, please understand that we too are working at home. We have families at home. We have our own, we need to have a cutoff at some point and to respect the boundaries in that. So that's been a learning curve. I don't know what else. I can go on and on. I have so many stories, Leilani, so I don't know where you want me to go.
Yeah, let's come back. Think of those more stories. I'm loving what I'm hearing. I think what you're dealing with also is just like what Lisa said. It's an emotional moment. It's more that than anything else. And I'm from the East Coast districts. I've been hearing a lot about and even in California districts where they've got 2 parents that are in the tech industry, they're still working. So the older kids are babysitting the younger ones anyway. So that's it. So I love the flexibility of your scheduling. Hey, Nestor, let's unmute you and have you share. So you go next, and then we're going to start having people type in questions and have all of you guys as panelists start answering.
Hello, everyone. This is Nestor. Well, I think this is a very complex topic, Leilani. This is something extremely difficult. As Tisha was mentioning, this could be interpreted as a stress test to an already system that is under stress. Leilani was mentioning that not all digital media is created equal. You have passive, active. A cell phone is really a media production tool, not only for consumption, but even for generation of content. You also have communication. So it's very complex to really come down to a formula, to a prescriptive time. But the 40-60% that you guys are sharing, I think is very healthy, is very balanced, is what most experts agree upon. There are some research that I looked at from the Harvard Medical School, and also some recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Yeah, I know this is not a medical conference, but still, I think they have a lot to say because they have studied the effects of light emitting devices in the brain. So basically, what they have agreed upon is that really the time is not the biggest problem, is the quality of the content that the kids are being exposed to. So on all the research I read, there were really very little concern about the educational content. They are more concerned about what students are doing for entertainment, how many hours of TV shows or entertainment videos on YouTube they are doing, at what time are they engaging with texting and all the apps that they are very used to. Also, the age average in which students are getting their first smartphone has decreased. They are getting it at a younger times, and the behavior also has been changing in the last few years. So I think I would like to shift the focus a little bit more towards educating the community on really how to address the problem of the screen time on our students, on our kids. Are we being good models? Are we having device-free environments when we are eating, when we are having a family reunion? In so many instances, I really think since not all media is created equal, we should be more selective at the time of thinking about how much screen time is my kid having. Now, our experience as a district, now shifting towards what is happening right now, we try to keep that healthy diet of digital media. For instance, we are in the middle of a technology rollout with middle and high school already having their Chromebooks. Next year was going to be the turn for elementary school students, but that has been accelerated a little bit. So I believe like big shipments of Chromebooks are arriving in the next weeks. But all this to say that it's difficult to say or believe that any district can be fully prepared to face something like the things we are facing right now. Even those that were having devices where one-on-one, there is a struggle to go from a regular classroom that uses technology and moving into a at-home learning exclusively. And I also like to bring Lisa's point to the social and emotional aspect of our students. That is a lot, I wouldn't like to use the word easier, but for the lack of a better word, I think it's a lot easier in a face-to-face environment, a physical environment. It's more challenging to achieve that in a virtual environment. So to Lisa's point, I think a lot has to be done also on those areas. And to finalize, also, I think we need to think about equity. Not all families will have high-speed internet at home, let alone devices. Even for those that, let's say, you have a computer at home, an internet at home, how many school-age students do you have in your household? Is one laptop going to be enough to manage the coursework and the workload that 3 kids may demand? So I think it's extremely difficult, and this is a stress test, and we are going to learn a lot. Back to you, Lena.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. And I've been bugging the people in the tech side, the companies, about the deeper issue of equity and access, because some of the big cities are, some of those bigger districts and the big inner cities are telling me, you got 4 or 5 kids at home, or you're in an apartment complex building, you got clashing Wi-Fi, and there's issues galore right now. I love the fact that all of you guys have been talking about the social emotional side and the complexity of that. And I also think all 3 of you believe this is far from over. So there's a lot of places they don't know if they're even coming back for the rest of this calendar year, or if they're going to be going back to school in the summer, and then how they're going to deal with social distancing in a physical environment. There's just, like I said, issues galore. But the good thing is you got these baseline hardcore structure issues, but you also have another phenomenon happening, and that is everyone's figuring out that digital instructional design is miles deep, and the expertise you have in your schools in digital instructional design is missing in most places. So can you each talk to that? Because I'm sure you're looking at summer already and the possibility that a second wave will hit you going into the fall. What are you thinking with in terms of upping your sophistication and using screens in a convincing manner to do a better job of content so that you don't have these issues of should we do screen at all? Lisa, do you want to go first?
Well, I kind of heard your question 2 different ways. What do we expect in our future for summer and fall? And I think that's everyone's question. But how do we continue to be stronger online learning and distant learning designers. And I think, we're practicing, and we had to practice quickly. So I have kind of answers to both of those. I'm certainly looking across the nation as to what people are doing. I know that coming from San Antonio Independent School District, they announced that they wanted to return in the summer. I think that's for the gap of learning. And I know that we're going to have to create sort of a hybrid. So I think we need to go to those blended experts and really tap into their expertise of what blended will look like, especially if we have to return when we know that we need to reduce the amount of students in a classroom. And in Oregon, we don't have a cap, and we're not funded in that way. And so we have large classrooms to begin with. And I think that right now I have a task force working on just how we would extend our days and group our students into 3 groups and rotate through sort of when you have those overcrowded schools and districts. In Washoe County, I worked there for 10 years and had a rainbow of calendars. And so I think we look to that and use it to reduce the number of kids at a time. And then you have your face-to-face, and then you go and you have your blended learning. To become stronger designers, we really just tapped into the folks in my division and myself that had some blended learning experience, and we created playlists for our principals. Principals had all levels of understanding of how to be synchronous and asynchronous on a digital platform, how to actually set up. We use Google Classrooms and Google Meets and all of those key pieces. We don't have an LMS, so we're utilizing it that way. And then what we did was at a district, we just created an adjusted standards scope and sequence. We roll out a playlist every week to our instructional leaders, our principals, and then they in turn create a class list for their teachers to review the materials. And then the teachers in same do that with their classes. So we were just practicing how you would design something in this new platform. And I know those are basic, but we were starting with some people in a very basic understanding, and then we'll dive deeper. I think it's really important that we've had previously strongly vetted digital tools, and then you can always fall back on those. And some districts have those, some districts don't. And fortunately, we've seen, as ACT just said, we get to tap into some of the best resources because they have opened them up until June. And it's my job to go back and dig into those to find out if we have the right tools or not, and how we start to grow that as we know we're going to head into a blended platform. So hopefully that answers your things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so turning back to Tisha, I don't even remember what I asked because I got so enraptured by Lisa's answer. But
well, you asked, what are we going to do in the future? And then you also said, how do we become a better designer?
Yeah. Instructional design is a key thing. And so let's just go back to the screen time versus teacher time issue and people pushing back on that. If they see quality, like Nestor was saying, it's a totally different ballgame. So you go, Tisha.
Well, I mean, you're right. Instructional time, I mean, the quality. I have teachers that are like high flyers and they want to do everything and show off their skills, blended learning virtually and stuff, but it was way too much. The reason I say way too much, it was a lot of work for the students, and they had to understand that. Think about it being in college. You're asking these students, they're taking 7 classes, and can you imagine if every teacher was like that with all this extra, it's not extra work, but you have to scale it back because they have 6 other classes, not just yours. And that was especially difficult for my science teachers because a lot of them are high flyers, blended learners, virtual. So they were like, they are in their realm. And then I have the other teachers who struggle with technology as it is. And I'm like, just be basic, start simple. Use the LMS for the assignments. Do your face-to-face, do your instruction online. And it's worked out really great because there are some teachers who've been a little bit resistant with PowerUp with their integrating the technology. And now that they see that they can actually do it, it's given them a little bit more confidence. So they are learning and wanting to know more, which has been awesome. I've totally lost my train of thought. I apologize, but
No, but it was a great comment that you just made, because I heard that from Pomona, and I forget what other districts. I think Buckeye said the same thing, but you know, the moving past the just getting people on boardness is over. Like,
yes,
Pomona said they had 600 teachers trained basically overnight.
Mhm.
And
yes.
so that please, would you please learn technology? That's over, right? So, you know, yeah, we're done with that.
Now,
Okay, so
now so another the struggle we have now is because especially for the high schoolers, and this is not just at my campus, but my other colleagues from the other campuses, they all share the same thing. We have teachers that they are so upset when the student does not attend their class live. They get so upset. And I think I don't remember who said it, but a student was getting like 32 phone calls in one day. Well, that kind of happened for us. You know, the parents were like, whoa, you know, every teacher called, and then their AP and then their counselor called. So they were getting all these phone calls because they were concerned why they weren't showing up to class. But it turns out that the kid was working. And so, and it was like, well, if they're actually doing the work, it's okay. So that component, it took a little bit for them to understand that not all 30-something students are going to show up at one time. If they get 15, that's a high five, you know?
yeah, that's what Vermont Virtual was telling us, is that in the virtual world, you know, those teachers would be like, they only do a Zoom or Google Meetup once a month. Like, all the rest of it's email back and forth, system conversations back and forth, assignments, projects turned in. It's a totally different world. And I think these two worlds are coming together now. It's a big giant clash. I also want to say LAUSD was experiencing 40,000 AWOL kids. It's one of the reasons I think the governor is calling California back to order and putting them back in school sooner than anyone thought they would. Like, I didn't think California was going to come back for the rest of the calendar. But you know, AWOL kids was pointed out to me by our friend Keisha at T-Mobile. Sometimes they're AWOL because they don't want to Zoom meet or Google. It's not Zoom, because Zoom you can put in a different background. They don't want to meet because they don't want to show where they live, right? This is an embarrassing thing for teenagers. Or their little kid or their brother comes running naked in the background, they get blamed for it. You know, things are happening right now that are weird, and we have to deal with all that. Okay, so Nestor, I don't even remember what my question was now, but I know you do.
But I hope so. These are very exciting times. I think everybody can agree, regardless of the stress that this brings. This is extremely exciting. We're going to be talking about these times years from now. I think universities, all schools of education in the country are going crazy. If they are not, I will be very disappointed. But I think they are redesigning how they educate future teachers. Lisa, you bring a very important point. You know, it's not anymore just curating resources. They need to become really good designers. They have to be educated on user experience, on so many things that I'm pretty sure most of our pre-service teachers don't have a lot of grasp on it. So that's one thing about what's coming in the future. I think higher education institutions are taking notes, and they have to change a lot of things, you know, just because of the current experience. Our summers, we already changed all our PD, of course. Right now it has been virtual for what, month and a half already. Our tool of choice in our group is Microsoft Teams. We have other groups in the district that are using Zoom, but we have that preference for Microsoft Teams because of the potential that it has to create community, not because the chat stays there with all the links and comments, but also because you can bring a lot of things into the conversation and really become like a repository of resources for whatever the topic was. So if you want to create community in the PD world, because that was a big thing, you know, before all this happens, how can we convert PD from, you know, like one-time event to something that really allows people to grow and increase the proficiency of their craft? So I think Microsoft Teams allows for that in a virtual environment, yet really to create that community sense. What else?
Yeah, I really like that comment. I want to mention that I'm going to be doing a podcast later this month with Sakan Kie. She's with Washington, D.C. Public. She's the only person that I met all these years on the road that had an instructional design degree as well as a UI UX master's. I believe it's a master's. So
Right.
the craft between the two worlds, you know, the Addie's model versus the big question mark model, which the Learning Council is working on with her, and we're going to invite all of you at EduJedi to be part of this, as well as Allison here from ACT, is what is the model? And it's a different model than Addie's in the instructional design for digital world. But the new model has to bridge, you know, because you guys are going to remain physical entities where you physically go there, and you're going to be hybrid. I mean, that's really what everyone is saying to us right now. And what does that mean for the actual design model? And I think there's really interesting questions right now. I don't think it could be a more exciting time and also more scary. And how do you balance the screen learning and the physical work that the kid is doing? So I think we have, you know, time for another round of comments. Nestor, do you want to say something else right now?
No, not really. I can wait for the next prompt.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I just want to go back. I'm going to go back to this last screen because, you know, the people are joining this particular event for this issue of what people really care about in screen learning versus the physical world learning they were all used to. So those things that are hitting you from parents and from students,
Right.
and this blending, I do believe, and maybe Nestor, you said that, or maybe it was you, Lisa, but the education of your consumer public, your parents and your students, about screen learning appropriateness and what you're doing with regards to recording so kids have flexible access are huge. But these are the areas of address that we identified. So Nestor, do you want to comment on any of those in terms of what your work is right now?
Yes, I think I would like to go back to not all digital media is created equal. It's not the same. Let's say you have a group of students doing some low-level drill and kill literacy or numeracy software, or they are just engaged in an online curriculum that they learn how to play it just by multiple choice assessments. So that's very low level of engagement in multimedia. I think the empathy and the creativity and the social and emotional learning aspects will elevate the experience. I can only imagine the high quality time in front of a screen that a student can have designing an app or communicating meaningfully to others, you know, a real audience. Or think about robotics or 3D modeling, or through collaboration, even beyond the classroom and the district and the state lines. So I think there is a lot of room for reflection about the type of digital media interaction that we are having, and how are we going to really promote high quality learning and learning experiences through technology with our students, because it's like everything else, you know, showering devices doesn't solve anything really. And also just buying a lot of apps doesn't solve anything either. So it has to be something that really addresses the needs of the students. And that has to allow for differentiation, personalization, that goes even beyond adaptive technologies. It has to be that human aspect, that empathy, that relationship that the teacher develops with the students to really address and serve really, really well the needs of the students.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm not going to be surprised when all of you guys as executives in the K-12 field come back midsummer and say, hey, one of our biggest lessons was we're human. Our teachers are human. And we just found out that technology can do a lot more heavy lift in core curriculum as well as supplemental, but that moved our teachers to doing way more emotional support, logistics support, motivation, right? And we just discovered something, that we're human and we're fantastic at being human. And that's what people want. And we can stop doing all this other stuff now because we're leaning on the quality stuff to do more of our heavy lift. I'm not going to be surprised about that at all.
You talked about the
Go ahead.
40-60 split, but that's the balance. I think there's great things that we can improve education through our digital and blended learning, but it really then taps into the human side, the social emotional, the relationship pieces, and that's the blend. And so I think that I think we're starting to see that. And then also I wanted to go back to the slide that we're showing about what people really care about. We're seeing right now in our community, and we see it on social media, that people don't know what teachers are doing now because the job has been turned upside down and we've had to navigate through something completely different. People know what the nurses and doctors are doing in this pandemic. They know what the frontline workers are doing. And we feel like we're frontline workers, but no one knows what we're doing. And so I'm taking advantage of our media and going through the day of, the day and the life of a teacher so they can see how different it is. You had a great slide that it's not just being with your students, it's creating that and curating those lessons. It's also looking at data. It's also tapping into checking on the families. I mean, there's a long list of things so I would just encourage us to make sure that we're telling the story as we go through this and ensure that people know that teachers are, yes, they're doing so much. And like my colleague was saying, they're answering their emails and they're talking to kids in all hours of the night, not recommended, but trying to get that balance back. There's a lot that's going on. I would have never thought my job would have been longer hours.
Yeah, but I love the Facebook memes where some parent is doing like a little, the kids rioted and I started drinking at 10 a.m. because it was so overwhelming. And why are you paying these teachers $1 million a year? I can't take it, right? So there's also that, right? It's an amazing thing. So we need to get to the chat questions. And Allison, I unmuted you. Can you share what you shared real quick?
Yeah, I so agree with the importance of instructional design and that teachers typically don't have that background. I have son and 2 daughters-in-law who are all 3 teachers, and so I'm living this vicariously through them. So I immediately started looking for, that's not a service we currently have, but where could we get something for them? So I found online and I put it in the chat. I have no idea what the quality is. I have not audited it, but there is like an 8 to 10 hour free course out there that teachers, if they pay, can get a certificate, but it gives them the basics of instructional design.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, great. Okay, so we're coming up on the top of the hour here. I just want to make sure I've answered all the questions. I'm rechecking the questions. I've checked the chat. None of our attendees are typing in. They're all quiet. They're in reverence, I'm assuming, of all of you guys as panelists. So Tisha, do you want to make one final comment and then we'll wrap it up?
I love that Lisa's going to take advantage of the media to show the life of the teacher, of what is actually going on behind the scenes. I did a PTO meeting not too long ago to help parents understand what teachers are also going to and help them remember that teachers also have kids and they're going through the same struggles as the parents are. And that was a big wow moment for my people.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Yeah, we're having lots of wow moments, aren't we? Okay, so I'm looking at a question here from Graciela. What districts are doing to train parents, especially the parents who are totally new to even things like Google Classroom and don't know how to do anything? Anybody want to comment on that? How are you dealing with parents who can't help at all?
I'll say 2 things quickly. We quickly trained some of our educational assistants to be on call. We also have offered that office hours so parents can call and utilize them. And we've launched our student support operations. And I think it's really important because when you, like, we're a Verizon grant, which we have digital one-to-one in our middle schools, and we've created teams of kids that can help kids, but we have a help desk for kids, and then we have a help desk for educational assistance for parents.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a really big thing. And then, so Timothy, you asked what is a good ballpark for return on ed tech use? I think I'd prefer to address that in one of the other upcoming webinars that's coming up, because the whole ed tech usage ROI question, in my mind, being in the research industry for the last 25 years, is a question that people who have no familiarity with tech. They don't understand. The world just moved and we're all in this and we're not even asking that question anymore. But I can get into more detail on that, Timothy. But if there's somebody asking what your rate of, I need to understand which tech you're talking about. If you could type that in, that would be awesome.
Am I still unmuted?
Yeah, you're still unmuted.
Okay, I would like to share some of the things that Dallas ISD is doing. One of the first responses was to create a portal, a website that parents and students could access. And these resources have been growing exponentially. It has pieces for elementary school students, secondary school students, specialized programs. This website is available not only in English, but also in Spanish. It has videos about what is available inside of it. There is also a section that is dedicated for parents only. We have videos about how students can access their coursework in any of the LMSs that we are using, which are Google Classroom and Power School Learning. Also suggesting resources like virtual field trips, daily routines, social and emotional learning activities. So we also participated on a forum, open forum, led by the social and emotional learning leaders in the district. And we did it in English and in Spanish as well. And we were just taking questions from the community. It was really, really interesting. So at least from my personal experience, we have been very active about reaching out to the community to gain feedback from them and to try to provide the most accurate and helpful information so they can also navigate this crisis with us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, we're all learning so much. And I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but we're here at the top of the hour now, and it's my job to cut us off, unfortunately. So I'm going to just make sure you guys all know you can become an Edu Jedi like the awesome panelists that we have today, and also do that training to find out about the future. Because one of the things I want to caution as the Learning Council is that what you do now needs to understand where technology is going to converge with teaching and learning for the future. So you don't waste money now and not build for the future. Allison, you want to say thank you really quick, and then I'll end off.
Absolutely. Just wanted to say thank you. It's been an honor to participate and listen in, and thank you all for the great work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nestor and Tisha and Lisa. You're super awesome and amazing. Keep up the good work. You have like an energy hug from me to continue and keep going all virtually, because we can never hug in person anymore, I don't think. But want to also invite you all to be part of the upcoming webinars that are coming down. We've got an all-star lineup. We have almost too many panelists on some of these. The response from all of the experts in the market has been unbelievable. And so we'll see you soon. Again, thank you very much to the panelists. We're going to be ending the webinar now. Thank you all for joining. It was a delight having you. We'll see you next time.